Good evening, everyone. I think we are good to go. Uh, Now we are in lockdown 2.0 and we have started this education series post our exclusive webinar series wherein we had discussed on various aspects, right from wages, whether we should pay or not, then how MSME should really cope up with this COVID situation. Thereafter, we also covered about comprehensive analysis of uh, actions taken from foreign trade policy, customs, and all those things. Now we have already started with the series yesterday, a knowledge series. Yesterday there was session from Naval sir on foreign trade policy. Today and tomorrow I would be covering on basics of customs. I would be going to the basic of it, right from basic, right? That is when it is levied, how it is levied, what different kind of duties are there. So the entire intent is to go back to the basics and identify the route from which the levy would be there, under which act it is there, which are the rules applicable to it, how I should classify the goods, what are the offenses and penalties, if there are any offenses and penalties, to what extent they can go. So all those things we would be covering in today's session. Though you must have received a mail about the session would be 2 hours for the day. However, we'll try to squeeze it little, and we would try to finish today's session by 5:30, so that it doesn't become more taxing for every one of you. Now some of you are raising hands. I don't know what is the issue exactly, but if you have any issue you can drop the issue message in chat box so that I can go through. You may see that I may be a little distracted from screen. That is because a lot of people may raise some question or this, which I am just looking at it. I hope I'm audible to everybody. With this, I would be starting the today's session. Now, customs duty. Just before we really start on various definitions of customs duty, I would like to just give little background about customs. Customs duty is not new to India per se. It's been levied since ages. जब से राजा महाराजा थे तब से कस्टम्स ड्यूटी लगता था. अभी तो दूरदर्शन पे रामायण भी चल रहा है, सब चल रहा है, सो महाभारत रामायण सब चल रहा है, सो वी आर यूज टू ऑल दीज ancient times again, and we are reliving the moments which the Ramayana Mahabharata used to create. Even in ancient time when there were kings and all those things, anybody coming into or wanted to do business in their states or in their, I would say, areas, they used to the various trader used to give lot of gifts to rajas and all those at that point of time. It was nothing but a kind of customs levy. However, if I mean that was, we all know Indian, what a lot of people call is mythology is not documented, or even if it is documented, a lot of people feel it is not authenticated or something. But just to give you the little background of all authenticated period, what we call after what we normally say BC, in 1786, I'll repeat, in 1786, the first board was set up for looking after the import export into India. So, right way back to 1786, and of course, where it was set up, we all know in that time of India, Calcutta was the, I would say, trading destination for India. And naturally, this first board was set up in 1786 in India to look after various customs duties. Then, of course, it was further formalized in 1808, and a trade board was formed in India. Then in 1859, India had its own Customs Duty Act. Though India was not independent India, but all provinces, they were having different customs duties act. Then all those were merged, and in 1878, first Sea Custom Act was notified. So in 1878, India had Sea Custom Act. So whatever goods were coming by sea, it was were subjected to customs duties vide Sea Custom Act. Then after 1878, in 1894, India came up with their own tariff. So you can understand how old our Indian tariff is. So Indian tariff was established right in the year 1894. So even more than 100-year-old tariff act we are having. Of course, right now we have a very modified version of tariff, but the concept was coined in India in 1894. Then, of course, naturally, by the goods used to come not only by sea but also from air. So in 1911, so that is 1911, in Wide Indian Aircrafts Act, India started levying customs duty on goods imported through aircrafts. Then in 1924, India also enacted Land Customs Act. So wherever the goods are coming through land, India enacted the Land Customs Act. Then after 1924, these acts were different acts were working. Then India got independence. We all know in 1947. Then we started our own acts, and then in 1962, India came up with its own Customs Act, which is even applicable today. So what we today look at from an export-import point of view is Indian Customs Act, the Customs Act 1962. So in 1962, India had its first Custom Act. Now what Customs Act cover? The Customs Act cover basically all export and import regulations. It not just only covers duties, but it also covers how duty should be collected, when it should be collected, what amount should be collected, who should collect, who is the authority of it, how they would be operating, what kind of documents the exporter importer need to file. So every of that aspect is covered under the Customs Act, which we had in 1962. Of course, every year we used to see changes depending upon how the businesses are changing and everything. So the Custom Act keep on having changes every year. So we have budget during which the changes are proposed under the parliament, and once parliament approves, the act has its own changes. Now, what is the definition of export and import? So these are the two important definitions which are there under the Customs Act. So under the Customs Act, what is export? Export with its grammatical and variation and cognate expression means taking out of India to a place out of India. So it means export means you are taking out goods from India, out of India to a country outside India. And what is the definition of import? Exactly reverse of it. It says with its grammatical variation and cognate expression means bringing into India from a place outside India. So export, as we normally know, if we send any goods outside, we call it as an export. If we bring some goods into India, we call it as an imports. So naturally, the most important aspect of this definition is what is the meaning of India? Correct. So it was very important to understand the meaning of India from to really know till what extent the customs regulation would be applicable. So, of course, the Act has defined, the Custom Act defined that the Custom Act would be applicable to whole of India. So it was important to define India. Like every act has its own definition, Customs Act also has its own definition, which says India includes territorial waters of India. So what is the meaning of territorial water? Territorial water meaning 12 nautical miles, which is approximately 22 kilometers from the baseline of India is a territorial water. So I have given here a picture. The picture gives a best idea about the customs law at what point it is applicable. So you would see in the picture you have an high sea where you would see a sketch of ship. So which is an high sea, where normally what we call is an high sea sale transaction happens. Then you have exclusive economic zone given to every country. So we are part of United Nations. We are part of United Nations signatory. So United Nations, by virtue of it, every country has got the exclusive economic zone, which are under the I would say sea. And the country which owns exclusive economic zone can explore those areas. So whatever natural resources are there, those are what you call it, those are belongs to that country to which it is applicable. So the exclusive economic zone, whatever is applicable, so this is an exclusive economic zone. So I have highlighted by an color. So this exclusive economic zone, suppose if we assume this land border is of India, goes back up till 200 nautical mile. So till that point, India has a right to explore whatever natural resources are there. Then after exclusive, you have a contiguous zone, which is 24 nautical mile from your baseline. So this area is contiguous territorial sea plus contiguous zone. So territorial sea is 12 nautical miles from the baseline. Contiguous is another 12 miles from the end of territorial line. And exclusive economic zone is 200 nautical mile from the baseline. So till exclusive economic zone, we can explore all natural resources. Till territorial sea, only the Custom Act is applicable. So this first dotted line is up to which the Customs Act is applicable. If you are taking out any goods from this to another country, it would be termed as export. If you are bringing its goods to the territorial water, it would be termed as import of goods. So this is how it would be here. So as I would repeat, the territorial water is up till 12 nautical mile from this. So till this point, the land of India, we all know the map of India. However, the Custom Act is applicable till 12 nautical mile from the baseline. Anything even brought into these areas would be subjected to customs duty. Just to give an example, I'm giving a very raw example. Like when 26/11 happened, a lot of terrorists came into India. So whatever they brought, whether ship, whether guns, whether bombs or everything, were all subjected to customs duties, even though whether they have followed procedure or not. I'm just giving a crude example of things. Now I would also give an example. Now what happens if some ship comes, if this ship comes here, correct, and sinks here, what would happen? Correct, whether customs duty is payable or not. So there are a lot of ruling which says whatever goods have even are sank in the territorial water, they may be subjected to customs duty, because Customs Act is applicable till the territorial waters of India. So this is a territorial water, 12 nautical mile. Thereafter, you also have an exclusive economic zone and contiguous zone. So what happened is, there are certain, as I've said, India has got right to explore these areas. Now we all know a common, I'll give a very common example of what we have. We all know we have an oil rig in exclusive economic zone. One of the oil rig that we normally call is Bombay High, correct? Which is close to 176 kilometers from the Mumbai, I would say, coast. So from Mumbai coast, if you go towards west side, 176 kilometers in Arabian Sea, we have an oil rig. Now India also wanted to tax those things So custom acts also can notify any area within these exclusive economic zones which can be subjected to customs duties, as well as Central Excise Act also has these provisions. Like in Bombay High, which is our oil rig, what we do, it is a deep sea exploration wherein we explore oil and gas from deep sea, which is in exclusive economic zone of India. So ONGC owns that oil rig, because oil, wherever you explore the oil, that is called as oil rig. So that oil rig is owned by ONGC. So on that platform, what we call as Bombay High platform, whatever goods are imported there are also subjected to customs duty. Whatever things get manufactured there or produced there is also subjected to central excise duty. So just to tell you, one thing is there, that Customs Act is applicable till territorial sea, irrespective of whether it is notified or not. However, any line after territorial sea, that area has to be notified by customs for levying the customs duty. Just to again give an example, had it been Bombay High, or that area would not have designated by customs, then whatever is brought at that place would not be subjected to any customs duty or would not be subjected to central excise duty. However, India wanted to even levy duties on those goods which are brought in there, because we all know these oil fields are very, I would say, critical. Lot of goods and technology get imported there. So considering that, whatever is imported there, you have to pay the customs duty if that area is notified. So just to tell you, Customs Act just to reiterate, Custom Act is applicable to entire land of India. We know the land of India. We know the map of India. It also extends to 12 nautical miles from the baseline into territorial sea, and it may also extend further into our exclusive economic zone or contiguous zone, subject to that area is notified under the Customs Act for the purpose of levy of the customs duty. So I hope this gives an better idea about what is territorial sea, what is contiguous zone, and till what extent the Customs Act is applicable in this case. Now, this is what we discussed just now, that Indian customs water is water extending sea up to contiguous zones of India. The contiguous zone we have discussed further extend by 12 nautical mile beyond the Indian territorial water. यानी इंडियन टेरिटोरियल वाटर है 12 नॉटिकल माइल, और उससे आगे और 12 नॉटिकल माइल क्या है, तो कॉन्टिग्यूअस जोन है. कॉन्टिग्यूअस का मीनिंग यानी क्या, जो जुड़ा है. जुड़ा है यानी जो इंडियन टेरिटोरियल वाटर से जुड़ा है, उसको कॉन्टिग्यूअस जोन बोला है. Every country has its own exclusive economic zones. करेक्ट. लाइक अगर मैं सी की बात करूं, तो अपने पास में कंट्री कौन सा है, वेर इन वी हैव I would say we also have a closer sea. One is Bangladesh, another is Sri Lanka, and then there is Pakistan also on the west side. So in order to not to have dispute, United Nations have also defined what is exclusive economic zones, so that people should not fight that what is my exclusive economic zone and what not. And even though United Nations have defined, we all know still there are a lot of disputes when it comes to the exclusive economic zone. One dispute we all know, which is very much famous, is South China Sea, what they call it, wherein the sea along the south of the China, that is this, which is close to also Vietnam and all those things. There's a lot of, I would say, fight going on between the countries lying there and China, that who owns that exclusive economic zone. because China claims that it is their territory and it is disputed by all countries, including India and even United States. And the entire fight is for the exclusive economic zone. So there are whatever minerals which are there in the sea, and again the sea routes people want to control. So considering that every country, though it is defined, there are some cases where there is some dispute on that exclusive economic zone of India or any country's exclusive economic zone. Now, important chargeability of customs duty. So section 12 of the Customs Act covers the chargeability of customs duty. Now what it says, that import and export would be subjected to duties of customs on all and imported goods and exported goods. Normally we are used to just understand that imported goods are subjected to customs duty. Please note, even export of goods are also subjected to customs duties. So whenever India wants, they can levy customs duty on export of goods. Now, who is liable to pay? The customs duties are liable to be paid by the importer or the exporter, as the case may be. It can be also the government. So government is also not exempted from payment of any customs duty. So important part is, whoever is importing the goods is liable to pay customs duties. Again, I'll repeat, whoever is importing the goods, they are liable to pay customs duties. What it means is, there are a lot of this, even though I am not owner of the goods, I am importing the goods, I will be subjected to customs duties. Now you may say that why I will import the goods when I am not the owner of the goods. Correct? But there, in normal business parlance, we know there are numerous cases where we import the goods even though we are not owning the goods. Just to give an example, if we import the goods for repair and maintenance, I have exported some goods which came back to me for the purpose of repairs and maintenance. I can bring those goods in those cases, even though I don't hold ownership of those goods, because I brought those goods only for repair and maintenance. Even though I would be termed as an importer, I am supposed to follow all the process of it. Correct? Another practical example is, lot of companies import the goods for the purpose of job work. So what they do, they bring the goods, they do activities what is defined into it, what is their understanding of it, they manufacture or they do job work and send back those goods. What they are entitled is only job work charges. In that case also, the ownership is irrespective of ownership. The one who is importing the goods, the one who is declaring that I am the importer of the goods, that would be termed as an importer. There are many such cases we have been handling. I'll just give another example. Not necessarily that the owner of the goods has to be outside India. In this case, we have handled a case wherein one party had imported the goods of another person in India only, who was owning those goods. So just to give an example, if I am buying those goods, I would hand over those goods to somebody else for doing some process, some job work, and then from there it can be further exported. Correct? I am sitting in India, but I am still asking somebody else to import. Even in those cases, the importer can be that third person. He can file the bill of entry. I can also make the payment by telling to RBI that he has imported, because there were some conditions that he should only be importing it. I am the owner of the goods. I am paying those. I can pay those towards that bill of entry, even though bill of entry is in the name of that. So from customs regulation point of view, what I mean to say is ownership is not the criteria. The one who say that I am an importer, I take all regulation, I take all responsibility, can be importer. The owner of those goods can be anyone. Same is in case of export of goods. Okay, so you have to also understand that for customs, the ownership is not criteria. What is the criteria is who is a importer. Importer is a person liable to pay. That's how the act is defined. The act doesn't say that owner of the goods is required to pay customs duty. It says importer is required to pay customs duties. Now, what are the different modes of imports? As we all know, India is connected through the world, uh, and this is how the import-export happens. We have import from air. It can be through cargo. It can be through passenger. Like if I go outside India, I can bring in my baggage also some goods which can be subjected to customs duties. We have seen lot of cases where people carry goods in their baggage without declaring to anybody. They come through green channel, which is completely in contravention of baggage rules. The government has also defined what goods you can bring in your baggage. What quantities of goods you can bring in baggage. We normally see read newspaper wherein we normally read cases. I mean, nowadays due to all flights have been not coming into India from any international destination, we must not have read anything in last month. But prior to that, you can check every newspaper wherein they'll say that at airport they held some passenger XYZ who is carrying gold in their baggage, which is in contravention to the Customs Act. So whatever action is taken in those persons is under the Customs Act. So anybody can bring by air through cargo. There are a lot of cargo planes, even passenger planes carry cargo. Then even passengers carry baggage. So if we are going, just to tell you, these baggage rules are so interesting. If I am going outside India, just to give an example, I am supposed to declare what I am taking outside India, so that while I am coming back, they can cross tally what I have brought. Taken out is only I have brought. But we have been little liberal in terms of these requirements. So they only, I would say, in customs, particularly at airports, they have done a green channel and a red channel where you have to declare. If you carry, they say, if you are not carrying any goods which are subjected to customs duties, you can come through green channel. So normally most of the passenger comes through green channel, but companies have to understand. We have seen cases where people carry tools, tackles, and they come through green channel without telling anybody, which is absolutely in contravention to the customs law. Because if somebody holds you at airport, you would be frisked and all Customs Act would be made applicable to you. So if you have any some person bringing in some goods, you have to be very careful while doing it, and you have to declare all and follow all formalities. Then through courier also it can come, right? We have seen that tremendous change in the way world do the business. Like we have Indian Amazon, we have Flipkarts. Similarly, we have Alibaba also. So the one who has used Alibaba's app AliExpress, even sitting in India, I can give an order to AliExpress. Now, how goods come in that case? The goods come through courier or goods come through post, and then the goods are imported into India. It's a very interesting case of how things really happen. If you go to AliExpress, you would see that same goods are what we get on Amazon and Flipkart, a little expensive than that of what goods are there on AliExpress. So AliExpress is a cheaper platform. What is the reason? The reason is very simple. AliExpress ships the goods telling that it is a gift. And in India, the gifts are not subjected to customs duties, but up to certain amount. Now, what happens is the moment it is exempt, you don't pay any customs duties, and goods get delivered at your place. So, what AliExpress did, or whatever platforms which are there, which are supplying goods from outside India, they ship those goods as gift. Their representative in India clears those goods from mail, from courier, whatever goods are sent, stating it is gift, and then they deliver goods to you. That's the model they were operating. And naturally, Amazons and Flipkarts in India or Shopclues or anybody were at a disadvantageous position, because if they import, it is subjected to customs duty and it gets added to their price, and when they sell to Indian customer, it becomes little costly. But if Indian customer directly places order on an AliExpress for the same goods, it gets cheaper. Now that issue, yeah, they raised to government, and of course government naturally amended the customs rule to tell that in such situation they will not get a benefit of gift. So it has to be assessed, customs duties has to be paid, and then you can sell. Now it has little made things difficult to clear the goods when it is shipped from AliExpress, but still it is going on. Just to tell you. So just to give an example from where I came is, the import can happen from anywhere. Import can happen through courier, import can happen through sea, import can happen through road also. Like we have some countries where we share our borders which are connected through land. So if we start from west, we have Pakistan, we have Afghanistan, we have China, we have Bhutan, we have um, Myanmar, we have Bangladesh, where the goods can go or come through roads. So these are the different modes. And as I've explained, courier and post are another mode through which the goods are imported. So any mode of import or export, it is subjected to customs duties. Now, how goods come? So just to give an basic about it, I know you all must be knowing all these things, but just for sake of this, I am also covering there are different modes by which goods are packed into different containers. You have 20 feet containers, the length of it is 20 feet. You have 40 feet containers. A lot of people need some more containers, more size, big size containers, that is 40 feet. You have 20 feet heavy duty containers, little stronger one. You have 40 feet high cube containers. You have refrigerator containers also to carry the perishable goods. India export a lot of perishable goods to Arabian countries. It's a time of Holy Ramzan, we all know. And India export tremendous amount of food and perishable items to these countries. And particularly during this period, it is very high because of the Holy Ramzan month going on. So India has, I mean, there are refrigerator containers so that the goods can be refrigerated. There are open top containers wherein the top is not there. It is open from top. You can place the goods. It is not covered from an top side. You have a flat rack. Now, flat rack is also open from three sides. So you will, the flat rack would be open from the top side and the another two sides of it. Then if you have a huge cargo coming, which is normally called as a break bulk cargo. Now, this is a very, I would say, not so much of cargo moves through break bulk, because it's literally very huge cargo. We have seen some cases where a lot of companies shift their entire plant from one country to another. So their entire manufacturing plants get shifted from one location to another. So in such case, those cargoes are termed as break bulk, wherein those entire plant is shipped on a ship into different sizes and all those things, and the goods are sent. Then you have a tank containers where the goods are like liquid petroleum or liquid gases which are refrigerated and liquidated into various containers. Then also you have a 40 feet long container. Just to give, all these containers are owned by different persons like shipping lines. Every container has its unique number, and all those containers are tracked on the basis of those unique container numbers, because the container can go anywhere. The container from India can go to Europe. From Europe, it may further go to China, because there is no point that whatever goods I've exported from that container should again come back to India. Correct? It doesn't make any sense. So the container move around the world, and those are tracked and identified on the basis of unique container number of it. So we all know most of the goods are coming in those containers. Now, just to give, who are the different agencies which are involved in export and import of the goods? There are various countries, agencies which are involved. I'll go one by one. One is Ministry of Commerce. In India, the foreign trade policy is governed through Ministry of Commerce. So Ministry of Commerce is a principal agency which governs the foreign trade policy into India. Then another, under the Ministry of Commerce, what you have is DGFT, which is Director General of Foreign Trade. So DGFT is an, I would say, implementing authority under the Ministry of Commerce, which takes care of different policy regulation, like if you have advance authorization, if you have EPCG, if you have some restrictions on some goods, or if you have permissions required, if you want to monitor some specific goods. So DGFT is an authority which is also involved into import and export. Then there are shipping lines and airlines who really carry those goods from one location to another location. Shipping lines, we know Maersk, Lloyd, NYK, there are n number of shipping lines. Airlines, there are specific airlines which carry goods from one country to another. DHL, UPS, they are owning, even though we understand them as in courier companies, we all know DHL, FedEx and all those, they also have airlines, they have aircrafts through which they really transport those goods from one country to another. Then another is port. Port is what? Port is where actual first time the goods would come if you are importing the goods, and it is a place from where the goods would be finally exported if you are exporting. So port is very important. Government notifies the port. We have lot of ports in India. It can be airports, it can be seaports. Just to give an example, again I am saying, you may be knowing, but I am just repeating for sake of the repeating. I'll say that you have JNPT port, you have now you have Hazira port, you have Mundra port, where you bring those goods. Then there are different freight forwarders who arranges the freight for you. There are shipping line agents, there are airline agents who represent different shipping lines. There are insurance agencies which are involved, who helps you to take insurance of those cargoes. Apart from that, you have ICDs also, which is inland container depot. It is wrongly written as internal, it is inland container depot, wherein what India did is, uh, normally what we see is seaports are near to sea. However, they have also set up ICDs, what we call as inland container depots, wherein the goods are shipped from those seaports or airports and given to those inland container depots. And at that place, the custom authority sits for clearance of your export and import goods. Then you have CFS, container freight stations. Then you have bonded warehouse, private or public bonded warehouse, you can, wherein you can keep imported or exported goods for certain period of time. Then you have a duty free shop. This duty free shop is very famous. We all know for what it is famous. It is more famous for liquor than any other thing. But these duty free shops, wherein people can buy goods which are not subjected to customs duties. Of course, when they are bringing into India, you have to look at the limit up to what they can really bring in as a baggage rule. Then there are cold storages. Then another important agency which is important from custom import and export is Ministry of Finance. भैया हर चीज यानी पैसा लेना जाना कहीं पे है तो सब मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस के पास है. मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कॉमर्स सिर्फ प्रपोज कर सकता है कि आप इसको एग्जम्पशन दो, उसको एग्जम्पशन दो, बट अल्टीमेटली एग्जम्पशन नोटिफिकेशन कौन निकालता है? मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस. कस्टम्स ड्यूटी का पैसा किसको पहले बार आता है अंडर द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया is Ministry of Finance, and in particular Department of Revenue. This Department of Revenue is actually looking into the exemption notification, the process of it. Then under Department of Finance, Department of Revenue, you have Central Board of Indirect Tax and Customs, which is the board, premier board I would say, which takes care of the entire operation of customs and indirect tax in India. So that board has one wing as GST, another wing as customs. Then you have customs house brokers, there are chartered engineers, there are valuers, because if you are bringing in second-hand goods, those are subjected to certain kind of valuation requirement. So who values those goods is chartered engineers and registered valuers. There are transporters who transport the goods. There are service providers on port, like to lift the containers. You have terminal handling charges. Those are the service providers. Then there are export promotion councils are also involved. So why these export promotion councils are created by government is so that they can bring on board similar kind of exporter at one council, and they can understand and address problems of those exporters. Like if there are service exporters, you have a service export promotion council. If you have a spices export, is a separate board for spices. There is a separate export promotion council for spices, so that government can monitor and also understand what problems those particular industry is facing into it. And there are certain general council where when there are no specific, they can go to those general councils like FIO, Federation of Indian Exporters Organization, which is a general council. If you do not have your specific council, you can go and take registration with FIO. The responsibility of these council is help government to devise policies for exports and import, to become bridge between government and the exporters and importers, so that their problems, government policies and everything can be properly channelized. Then you have different chamber of commerce and industries, Indian drug authorities. If you are importing goods, you have to ensure that the goods, the drugs are as per the Indian requirement. You have FDA also, Food and Drugs Administration authorities, to monitor the quality of goods. You have to ensure the guidelines of foods and drugs are followed. It's not that you are bringing anything and everything. Correct? So Foods and Drugs Authorities also ensures that there are some specific requirements. And similarly, you have similar industries which are looking into it, like fertilizers, petroleum. So wherever India has a larger interest, or wherever India wants to regulate, or India has to ensure that whatever coming into India and going out of India has to be properly monitored, those ministries are also involved, and their guidelines are also important to decide or import of goods or export of goods. And even just in current situation, we all know lot of countries are demanding hydroxychloroquine, which is termed as one of the potent drug to address the coronavirus treatment. Now, considering this situation, India has banned the export of these goods. I was telling in my another session, which concluded that India manufacture 70% of hydroxychloroquine, which get manufactured in the world. So we are one of the biggest manufacturer of that drug. Suddenly that drug become very important for everybody, every country, because it reduces or it, I mean, there are some studies which says that it is good for addressing this disease which we are facing right now. So, even though India banned it, lot of countries requested India, Brazil, US, Sri Lanka, our SAARC countries, lot of countries requested not to ban it. In that case, what India did is, India still continued the normal export ban, but what they said, that Ministry of External Affairs, first time I'm telling you, Ministry of External Affairs would tell to Ministry of Commerce that how much these goods to which country to be exported. So every country has to give their request to Ministry of External Affairs, that would channelize to Ministry of Commerce, and accordingly the permission for export of those goods, hydroxychloroquine, would be issued. So just to give an example, in this situation, even these kind of ministry like External Affairs were nowhere involved into import and export. But suddenly the situation came in, and to protect the interest of India as well as to protect the relationship with different countries. And of course, uh, we live with a what we call is बृहदवाक्य अपना जो है इंडिया क्या है, वसुधैव कुटुंबकम, ये दुनिया सबके लिए है, सिर्फ अपने लिए नहीं है. सो अगर कुछ उसकी दवाई हम यहाँ पर बनाते हैं तो हम वो एक्सपोर्ट करेंगे, बट वो एक्सपोर्ट हम कमर्शियल टर्म्स पे नहीं करेंगे, बट हम ह्यूमैनिटेरियन ग्राउंड्स पे करेंगे. एंड दैट इज व्हाई इवन मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स got involved into exporting these goods. So I'm just giving example that how different ministries also play and role in exporting and importing these goods into India depending upon different situation. So wherever you have an interest going in, if you want to control, you may direct those in the ministries to issue guidelines how the goods has to be imported. Then there are certificate of agencies for quarantine. Then there are chartered professionals like chartered accountant, cost accountants. So all these agencies are involved in export of and import of goods. Naturally, not every import and export you may need all those things. However, you have to keep in mind that your export or import may involve any of these authorities if you want to export. As I've just now given example, till date, there was no requirement of any guidelines from Ministry of External Affairs for export of hydroxychloroquine or its formulation. But suddenly that requirement came. So if you are exporting and importing, you have to also look into what are the different guidelines which are issued so that your goods don't stuck up at the port of export, and accordingly you have to take the necessary action of it. Now another what is important which we all know is Incoterms. Now what is this Incoterm is, what we normally understand is import export, you have a terms of export and import which is called as an Incoterms. Now who has defined Incoterms? Now, Incoterm, just to tell you, has no legal binding anywhere. None of the Indian law or even other countries' law. Of course, some countries have adopted this for the purpose of leaving duty. But even India or any does not have reference of these Incoterms in any of the act. These Incoterms are defined by International Chamber of Commerce. Now, what is this? This International Chamber of Commerce is a normal chamber. Like what we have is ASSOCHAM, what we have is CII, and all those things. It's it's a private organization which has defined these Incoterms, which on as on date has become and I would say benchmark to understand the terms of import and exports. There is no legality to it. However, the Incoterms, what it helps us to identify the responsibility of importer and exporters. So what are the responsibility of importer? What is responsibility of exporter? Now, the need was arisen way back. I mean, we all know over the period of time, the import and export have been growing every year. Correct. The US adopted the strategy that we would continue to hold the uh, intellectual property rights, and we would outsource the low jobs like simple manufacturing and everything. We would outsource to different countries because we are not interested in low jobs. What we are interested in getting royalty and getting revenue out of intellectual right. That was US strategy since years. So you can understand all innovations, intellectual property rights majorly lies with US. However, they have given manufacturing around the world. They said we are not interested in manufacturing. You manufacture, you give us at a low cost. What we would get is we would get our share of intellectual property. We would like to encash that. With such kind of strategies getting adopted world over, import and export increased. And as import and export increased, there was a need to identify the terms of export which are easily understood. And that's how International Chamber, way back in, I would say 1890 or somewhere, they started using these terms. They started with 3 terms, and they every year came up with new terms to identify the to make the import and export in a simple term, so that the exporter and importer understands the responsibility what they lies. So just to give an example, if we call it as an FOB term, which is used is in very frequently, in FOB term, the responsibility matrix, I have just given a responsibility matrix for it. I'll just draw it again, that this is a FOB term. So what is responsibility? The seller responsibility is defined as S, and the buyer's responsibility is defined as B. So in FOB, seller is responsible for packaging. Seller is responsible for loading of goods. Seller is also responsible for pre-carriage. Seller is responsible for export custom clearance in his own countries. Seller is also responsible of handling the departure from his country. The main transportation from the export location, the transport insurance, arrival, import clearance, post carriage, and unloading into warehouse, these all responsibilities lies with buyer, that is B. And these are the responsibilities which lies with the seller. So this is all defined by the International Chamber of Commerce for the purpose of simple export and import. Now this small idea came way back somewhere in 80s, but this International Chamber of Commerce have grown over the period of time. There are a lot of companies or organizations who are member of International Chambers of Commerce, and this chamber became so big that today this chamber is an observer in United Nations. They are one of the observer countries, observer status in United Nations, because they have helped the international trade to simplify by notifying all these things. So it has become so big, International Chamber of Commerce, that today they enjoy an observer status in United Nations. It is very interesting fact that one of the chamber is one of the observer in United Nations. This and that international chamber have defined all these. Just to give an example, they have also given the different version of, there are different version of Incoterms. So whenever you are importing and exporting, it is very important for you to understand which version you are referring. The latest version of Incoterm is 2019, 19, which is termed as Incoterm 2020. That's how they have defined. And just to tell you, this INCO word is also, INCO word is trademarked word, and that is trademarked by International Chamber of Commerce. So that word is trademark word. So if you normally Google Incoterms, you will see ENCO और ऊपर ब्रैकेट में R लिखा होता है, which is a registered trademark. जब भी कोई registered trademark होता है, उसके ऊपर R लिखते हैं. Correct? So these Incoterms are defined by international chambers. There are different Incoterms like EXW, which is XWorks. You have FCA, you have FAS. Normally we use FOB, CIF. In CIF, till freight and insurance, the responsibility lies with the seller of goods. So what is seller of goods responsibilities? Packaging, loading, carriage, export, clearances, handling, departure. Main transportation is also responsibility of the exporter. Then you have transportation insurance. Then once goods arrive at port, then entire thing, the responsibility lies with the buyer of the goods. So these are the CIF terms. Similarly, you have CPT, which we call it carriage paid to. You have CIP, which is, then you have a DAT, DAP, DDP. So we have written here the abbreviations of it, which you can refer to it. So Incoterms, you have to really go to international chambers of commerce, and from there only you would get an authorized Incoterms schedule of it. As I've said, the latest schedule is Incoterms 2020. So again, I will repeat, Incoterms has no legal standing, particularly from a law point of view. Incoterms are only to define or ease out international understanding of operations and transaction, so that every country really understand, the importer and exporter really understand what are their responsibilities of it. So customs duty, coming into customs duty is a duty which is levied by central government. So who controls customs duty? As we all know, it is a central government which controls the customs duty. Being it is import and export, it is under the power of constitution that customs duty levy can be done by the central government. So they are the authorities who are responsible for collection of customs duty. The revenue goes to central government. The central government is the authority which formulates the laws of customs duty in India. Now, what Customs Act has? So what is the objective, the basic objective? Because any law has to have its own objective. So what is the objective of Customs Act? The objective of Customs Act is primarily for levy and collection of customs duty. But of course, प्राइम ऑब्जेक्टिव इज पैसा लेने का. ठीक है, भले ही मैंने वर्ड बहुत यू मे से सार्केस्टिकली बोला कि कलेक्शन के लिए पैसा जमा करने के लिए कस्टम्स एक्ट है, बट वन इज लेवी ऑफ कस्टम्स ड्यूटी. However, the Customs Act is also important for the purpose of regulation of import and export of goods. यानी पैसा लेना तो एक बात है, बट गुड्स कहाँ आना चाहिए, कैसे आना चाहिए, किस फॉर्म में आना चाहिए, हु विल असेस ड्यूटी, क्या वैल्यू पे आना चाहिए. सो ऑल दीज रेगुलेशंस आर इक्वली इम्पोर्टेंट. Money can't be one of the only reason for the Customs Act. So Customs Act, as I've said earlier also, is also for regulating import and export. उस पे कुछ ना कुछ कंट्रोल रहना चाहिए. That is also done through Customs Act. Customs Act should also be used, and the object of Customs Act is also to protect the domestic industries. डोमेस्टिक इंडस्ट्री को भी प्रोटेक्ट करना है, बिकॉज देर आर सर्टन काइंड ऑफ ड्यूटीज विच आर लेविड टू प्रोटेक्ट माई इंडस्ट्री, टू प्रोटेक्ट माई डोमेस्टिक इंडस्ट्रीज. हो सकता है गवर्नमेंट में लेवी हाई ड्यूटीज और गवर्नमेंट में लेवी लो ड्यूटीज टू प्रोटेक्ट माई इंडियन इंटरेस्ट, और दे मे प्रोटेक्ट मोर ड्यूटीज टू safeguard my industries. Then government should also prevent smuggling. Smuggling को prevent करने के लिए, that is also one of the object of Customs Act. There should not be smuggling in India. Correct? There should not be Dawood Ibrahim in India. Even if there is any Dawood Ibrahim, that smuggler, how we should catch hold? Of course, nowadays, considering there is a huge import duty on gold, there are a lot of smugglers, even small time smugglers, who smuggle gold into India. There should not be smugglers into India. So the Customs Act also provides provision how to stop the smuggling of it. And of course, conservation and augmentation of foreign exchange. How we should conserve our foreign exchange, how we should augment our foreign exchange. Because Customs Act is complementary to augment our foreign exchange into India. Of course, Customs Act can also govern a lot of different things. World over, there are some endangered goods. Like we all know, sandalwood, which we normally call in our normal term is सैंडलवुड, जिसका ऑयल बहुत फेमस है, जिसका जो ऑयल एक्सट्रैक्ट आता है, which gets used in different this. Now how the government protects? They protects it by way of putting ban on such export of goods. Then there are some endangered species, like you can't import export certain animals which are endangered species, and those are regulated by Customs Act. Similarly, you have what we call is in between, the iron ore became very important in every country. So what India did is, India levied export duty on iron so that they can regulate these goods. Correct? So Customs Act not only covers or talks about levy of collection of duties, it also provides for regulations, it also provides for protection of domestic industries, it also prevents smugglings, and it also drafted in such a way which would conserve or augment foreign exchange into India. Now, Customs Act provides customs rates as well as on what goods you have to, at what levy the goods, at what rate the goods should be levied. Because you can't have one rate for all goods. So naturally, India came up with its own tariff. So the Tariff Act, we also have a Custom Tariff Act, which enlists all the goods which are subjected to customs duties. We can't have one duty for all goods. You can't levy same duty on gold, which is also levied on a normal automobile component, or a API required for formulation or API required for some life-saving medicines. You can't have same tax rate, same customs duty for these two goods. You can't have same tax rate for a car and same tax customs duty rate for a medicine, correct? So naturally, to make things clear, India have a custom tariff act under which we have a tariff of goods, wherein all goods are enlisted, wherein by which we can have a different kind of duties on different kind of goods. Now, just to give an statistics of what is Customs Act. Customs Act 1962 came in force with effect from 1st February 1963. This we have discussed that Customs Act is applicable to whole of India. Now, this entire act has 17 chapters comprising different 161 sections. Don't worry, I am not going to cover every section of it. As I've said, we would be having session till 5:30. And we have 2 days session during which we'll cover all important aspects of Customs Act. We would be covering important aspect of it. Coming back to it, we have what I was saying is there are 17 chapter, 161 sections into it. I have given a table of it, of what different sections you have. Preliminary section, which a preliminary chapter, which has 2 sections, section 1 and 2, which gives the short title, extent, and commencement and definition. So this preliminary section gives the to what extent this act is applicable, what are the different definitions of it, and all sort of it. Then you have different sections. I'll just read one of the important of it is levy exemption of customs duty is covered from section 12 to 28 BA, which covers everything: chargeable section, valuation of goods, recovery and refund related provisions. So all those things are covered under section 12 to section 28. Another important section, section 11, which gives power to government to prohibit import and export of goods. So if government wants to prohibit some import and export goods, section 11 of the Customs Act gives power to the central government for prohibition of it. Then there are amount of duties and everything which is covered under section 28C to 28D, which defines price of goods at which the tax has to be paid, then incidence of pass on and all those things. Then there are clearance of import and export goods, which is covered under section 44 to 51. I know you may sound it a little boring the way I am explaining it, but this is how it would be, particularly this section of it, that I would be reading those aspects rather than explaining more. So then you have a warehousing section, we all know, which is very important. You have private bonded warehouse, you have public bonded warehouse. So all those warehousing provisions are covered under section 57 to section 73 of the Customs Act. Then you have drawback. Drawback is what is, if you have paid and you want to get it back from government, then there are drawback sections. Section 74 to 76 are drawback, under which the exporters of goods are entitled to get back those duties which they have suffered into it. Then there are special provisions regarding baggage, goods imported and exported through post and stores. So as I've said, even if I am going outside India and I'm bringing those goods, there are baggage rules and sections into it which I have to refer. What all goods, those goods I can bring into India, and what goods I can take out from those things. So all is covered into baggage and post related things, what goods can come through post, what different regulations which are there, because baggage, post and all those things would have a different, I would say, regulations to it, because There are different channels through it. There are different processes involved. The mode of import becomes different, and that is why you have a special provisions to cover all those things. Then there are provisions related to search, seizure and arrest in section 100 to 100A. तो ये सब सेक्शन पेनल्टीज के है. कॉन्फिस्केशन कहाँ पे हो सकता है? 111 से 127 सेक्शन है जहाँ पे कॉन्फिस्केशन ऑफ गुड्स के प्रोविजंस है. There are settlement cases, there are appeal and revision. So if you contravene, there are provisions for appeal of those. Just to tell you, just to give an example, like as I've said, was baggage and all those things. There was a famous case we all know in Pune. I would not name that person. There's a big shot real estate person who brought different kind of watches, रोलेक्स वॉचेस और सब बैगेज में लाया था. सो उसको कहाँ पे पकड़ा था? तो उसको कस्टम्स एक्ट के अंडर पकड़ा था. एंड देन ही अपील्ड against the order of customs and all those things. He was arrested also. He's a big real estate person जो बहुत बड़े डैम्स बनाता है, बहुत बड़े ये करता है. And we all know he owns helicopters and all those things. So he was also arrested because he brought different baggages, in baggage different kind of watches. रोलेक्स 2-3 वॉच लेकर आया था. भले उसने पर्सनल के लिए लाया होगा, but he should have paid customs duties, which also appealed against these things. And of course, most importantly, there are offenses and prosecutions. So you have offenses and prosecution penalties and all those things which are there, which are subjected to various customs regulation. So this is how the Customs Act is in terms of section is bifurcated. However, in India, we know even though the act is one, there are different rules into it. Act में बोल देते हैं the government has got power to define the process and all those things. और वो प्रोसेस कैसे डिफाइन होता है? वो प्रोसेस डिफाइन होता है रूल्स में. So just to tell you, under the Customs Act, we have different rules. कितने rules है? अपने पास 45 अलग अलग rules है customs में, जिसमें से करीबन सिर्फ दो रूल है वैल्यूएशन के लिए. इंपोर्ट गुड्स के वैल्यूएशन कैसे करना है उसके लिए रूल है. एक्सपोर्ट गुड्स का वैल्यूएशन कैसे करना है उसके लिए रूल्स है. देन ड्रॉबैक के कुछ 2-3 रूल्स है अलग अलग, कि आपको अगर आप एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हो तो ड्रॉबैक के लिए है कस्टम, सेंट्रल एक्साइज ड्यूटीज एंड सर्विस टैक्स ड्रॉबैक रूल्स. री-एक्सपोर्टेड ऑफ इंपोर्टेड ड्रॉबैक रूल्स. Valuation में, as I've said, there are 2 rules which is very important rules. You have import goods valuation rules, you have export goods valuation rules. Normally export goods का अपन कभी सोचते ही नहीं है कि export के लिए भी कोई valuation rules है क्या, और वो क्या बोलते हैं, and whether it is whether I am really complying with it or not. Of course, export valuation rules, even customs department doesn't take it so seriously. Why? Because in India you have very less export duties. बहुत ही कम गुड्स पे एक्सपोर्ट ड्यूटीज डिफाइंड है. एंड इंपोर्ट ड्यूटी हर ऑलमोस्ट सभी गुड्स पे है. सो इंपोर्ट ड्यूटी का प्राइस और उसका वैल्यूएशन इज ऑलवेज टॉक ऑफ द टाउन, एंड दैट इज व्हाई we normally go through import duty rules. And there is an export duty rule. There are advance ruling rules. There are appeal rules. Then there are specific rules. Import of goods at concessional rate. Now, if you intend, if government has given some concession, then how that concession should be taken, then what government did, they have defined one rule, that if there are some concessional duty, government may say that you have to follow some rules to it. So which is that rule? customs import of goods at concessional rate for manufacture of excisable goods, then normal also. So what we in short term, all our exporters and importer knows is IGCRD rule. Importers of import of goods at a concessional rate of duties. So IGCRD rules are there for it. Then there are different 17 rules are there which are pertaining to preferential rates. Preferential rates यानी क्या? We are signing, we have agreements with different countries. जैसे ट्रम्प साहब आ रहे थे इंडिया में, डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प साहब जो आजकल बड़े फेमस है कोविड के इसमें, जब ट्रम्प साहब इंडिया में आ रहे थे, so there was lot of discussion going on that India may sign a tariff deal with US. US ने पहले इंडिया को काफी अच्छा बेनिफिट दिया था, which they call it GSP. तो GSP का एक बेनिफिट इंडिया को दिया था, जनरलाइज सिस्टम ऑफ प्रेफरेंसेस, जिसमें यूएस ने काफी गुड्स को एग्जम्पशन दिया था इंडिया के. बट ट्रम्प साहब आ गए, ट्रम्प साहब ने बोला हम इंडिया को इतने कंसेशन देना नहीं चाहिए क्योंकि इंडिया हमारे गुड्स पे बहुत लेवी करता है कस्टम्स ड्यूटी, देयर इज नो पैरिटी. So then he said we should have a separate tariff deal with India. यूएस ने सबके साथ ऐसे ही किया, वैसे ही इंडिया के साथ किया, और वो काफी बार बोलता है वो हमारे हार्ली डेविडसन पे बहुत ड्यूटीज लगाते हैं, इसके लिए हमने भी उनके गुड्स पे बहुत ड्यूटी लगाना चाहिए. जस्ट टू टेल यू, इंडिया का लार्जेस्ट एक्सपोर्ट डेस्टिनेशन क्या है, तो वो है यूएस. एंड फॉर अस US is very important. When Trump said that they are taking out from GSP, the Indian Ministry of Commerce was at very precarious situation. Unko, because India's export are heavily dependent on US. So then India decided to have a discussion with US to design a specific trade deal with US. और ऐसा इंडिया के पास एक के पास नहीं है. We have different countries with which we have these tariff deals, and every tariff deals comes with its own rule. So करीबन 17 रूल ऐसे हैं जो ये प्रेफरेंशियल जो होता है टैरिफ रूल जो वो गवर्न करते हैं. We have tariff deal with Japan, we have tariff deal with Sri Lanka, we have tariff deal with Vietnam. So there are a lot of countries with which we have done a tariff deals. So ये deals में क्या documents लगते हैं, कैसे लगते हैं, that is governed by different rules. So there are करीबन 17 rules ऐसे हैं जो उसके हैं. So इतने अलग अलग rules हैं इंडिया में which every exporter and importer has to really understand कि which rule is applicable to them while they are exporting and importing those goods to it. Now moving on to deep diving into Customs Act, there are different definitions given into it. So I'll take some important, though I have taken only important definition into it, but during presentation I am not going to explain all definitions, but some of the definitions which are important I am going to cover. First definition I am going to cover is assessment. What is assessment? Assessment includes provisional assessment, self-assessment, reassessment, or any order of assessment in which the duty is assessed is nil or any other way. So from an assessment point of view, the value has to be assessed. So customs duty किस पे लगाना है? Customs duty कोई value पे लगाना है और उसका assessment होता है customs department. So they assess the value of the goods. However, over the period of time, we have been, as I've said, getting a liberalized country wherein we are keeping more reliance on exporter and importer. So most of the time, the assessment, in most of the goods, the assessment is given, governed through self-assessment. Yani they say that you have to assess your own. If you have a problem, then only we will tell what is the value of goods. In some specific case only they tell what is the value of goods. And in specific cases only they say that we will review your valuation. Like if I am having related party transaction, I have my parent or a group company outside India who is supplying me goods, then only they say we would like to review your value. Because there may be possibility that you are undervaluing the goods. And hence they opt for a provisional assessment. So assessment is defined under the Customs Act. Then another definition is bill of entry, means and bill of entry referred in section 46, made under section 84. So section 46 governs entire what is the meaning of bill of entry. So whenever we are importing the goods, we file this bill of entry, that you allow entry of goods into India. And the bill of entry has a specific format wherein you are required to give some details. Which those kind of details? What is your import export code? What is your uh, value of goods? What is invoice? From where you have got the goods? From where you are export? What is the terms of import? What is the value? So there are n number of things which are there, which you are required to give in the bill of entry while importing the goods. Now there is bill of export also. So if you are exporting particularly for special economic zone and all those things, wherein you are required to file bill of export goods. Now what is dutiable goods? Dutiable goods means any goods which are chargeable to duty. Just to tell you, customs is applicable only on export of goods. It does not apply export or import of goods. It is not applicable to export or import of services. Now export import definition we have gone through. So it is important to understand what is the meaning of goods. The Customs Act defined the goods as vessel, aircraft, vehicle, all are goods. Stores. What is meaning of store? If in ship or if in aircraft you bring something as a part of store in that this, then it is also termed as an import of goods. Goods brought in baggage, currency, negotiable instruments are also goods from the purpose of Customs Act, or any kind of movable properties is goods. So it's a very exhaustive definitions which they have given from an point of view of customs. This is the definition of uh, goods. Now there is import manifest. Every import, the person in charge of what is there in the definition is required to file a import manifest. Person in charge of vessel, like a captain of vessel or a captain of aircraft, that is termed as person in charge. So whenever they are bringing some goods, they are required to file an advance intimation of import manifest, that what things they are bringing into it. So you have a shipping bill wherein what if you are exporting goods, you are required to declare a lot of goods, lot of things into this, like what is your value of export, to whom you are exporting, whether it is a free export or you're going to realize. So all those things you are required to declare in shipping bill. This. Then there are different values. So they have defined what is the meaning of value. There is tariff value. There are warehouse. So there are all different kind of definitions which are there. Now we move on to levy of customs duty. Now what is the levy definition? Now it says section 12, as I've said, section 12, I'll just read it and then I'll explain it. Section 12 of customs duty is imposed on goods imported or exported out of India as per the rate specified under the Customs Tariff Act or any other law for the time being. So what are the important point of this definition is customs duty is levied on goods which are imported into India or exported out of India. The levy is subjected to the provision of the act. The rate of basic customs duty are specified under the Custom Tariff Act 1975. So there are different customs duty. The basic customs duty is specified under the Custom Tariff Act. And even though government is bringing those duties, it is subjected to customs duty. So this is the levy section. The levy section makes things very clear that it is subjected to all goods imported and exported into India. Now, what is Customs Tariff Act? The Customs Tariff Act has broadly defined two schedules. The first schedule covers the goods which are subjected to import duty, and the second schedule covers the goods are subjected to export duty. Now we normally read all first schedule. The export duty schedule is very less. Like as I've said, whenever government wants to restrict some imports, export, they may levy uh, the export duty on it, or they want to reduce export of certain commodities. Like government has levied export duty on iron ore. Government wanted to restrict export of iron ore or control it, so they levied customs duty on export of iron ore. However, we'll still know the iron ore belt of Bellary had exported goods without paying customs duties also. However, in India, if you manage properly, you can export at any point of time whatever goods you want to export. Now, what are the different type of duties? So today this would be our last slide because we have already hit 5:30. But we would first discuss what are the different kind of customs duties are there. Now we all know there's a basic customs duty which is mentioned under the Customs Tariff Act. The Customs Tariff Act first schedule define the basic custom duty. इतना duty आपको भरना ही है, basic customs duty. Then the same Custom Tariff Act also define what is the export duties. Then of course we have different kind of cesses. Education के लिए पैसा जमा करना, education cess लगा दिया. Secondary higher education बढ़ाना है, secondary higher education cess लगा दिया. So these are the customs duty. There are different customs cess also. There is compensation cess, which is defined under GST also, which is also levied. Then IGST also levied under the Customs Act. Then you also have a national calamity contingent duty. अगर कोई calamity आए तो इस पे अगर कोई duties लगाना है, so there is a national calamity contingent duty which we call it NCCD. ये दारू सिगरेट जो sin goods है इन सब पे ये NCCD लगाते हैं. Then you have an anti-dumping duty. If some country is dumping some goods which India see as a threat, then they can levy anti-dumping duty. There are numerous anti-dumping duties which we have levied. Just to give an example of anti-dumping duties, we have levied anti-dumping duties on natural rubber. Natural rubber, Vietnam, China से काफी dump होता है इंडिया में natural rubber. So India, to safeguard India from these dumping, they have levied anti-dumping duty on natural rubber. आपको पता है ये टाइल्स, जो टाइल्स बनते हैं जो अपने घरों में लगते हैं टाइल्स, ये भी काफी डंप होते हैं इंडिया में. कचरा के भाव से डंप कर दे. और कौन करता है डंप? चाइना. अगेन जो सब स्टैंडर्ड क्वालिटी के टाइल्स है वो सब इंडिया में डंप होते. एंड हाउ इंडिया शुड बी प्रोटेक्टेड बाय दिस इज ज्यादा ड्यूटी लगाओ ताकि जिससे डिस्करेजमेंट हो कि लोग वो चीज ना लाए. और एंटी डंपिंग ड्यूटी ये स्पेसिफिक भी होते हैं. यानी सपोज मैं चाइना में हूं, मैं तो इंडियन हूं बट सपोज मैं चाइना में हूं एंड आई एम डंपिंग सम ड्यूटीज, सो ऐसे मेरे नाम से भी एंटी डंपिंग ड्यूटी लगती है कि इफ यू आर इंपोर्टिंग फ्रॉम XYZ कंपनी then it would be subjected to anti-dumping duty. So anti-dumping duty goods से नहीं, even किसी specific आदमी से या specific country से लाया तो anti-dumping duty लग सकता है. So if you look at anti-dumping duty notification, those are very interesting. They may say that if you are importing from this person, then from that person if you are importing, then इतना इतना anti-dumping duty लगेगा, per unit इतना duty लगेगा. So anti-dumping duty में भी दो तरीके से लगते हैं. एक लगता है provisional anti-dumping duty, क्योंकि उनका स्टडी होने तब तक इंडिया imports it. And then there is a final anti-dumping duty which can be levied for a specific period of time. Then you have a safeguard duty. No, अगर गवर्नमेंट को कोई डोमेस्टिक इंडस्ट्री को सेफगार्ड करना है, then with that objective the safeguard duties can also be levied into it. Then there are different additional customs duties which are also levied into it. So these are the different customs duties which are levied into India under the Customs Act. Then there are different rates, like there can be a preferential rate of duty or there can be a standard rate of duty. Like as I've said, wherever we have done a preferential agreement, we may levy a preferential rate of duty. Yani, suppose if I am importing this mobile phone may have a preferential rate of duty if I am importing from, suppose, Vietnam, or if I am importing these goods from Japan. However, if I import these goods, same phone from China, I may have a standard rate of duty. So you have to check all, I would say, tariff and the rules attached to it and notification to decide whether my goods have any preferential concession, whatever I am importing the goods, whether it has a preferential concession or not, or whether there are any standard rate of duties of which would be applicable. So if preference doesn't have, then normally the standard rate of duties which would be applicable in this case. Correct. So as I've said, the customs duty would be levied at either standard rate or preferential rate. So as I've said, we will stop here for the day. Tomorrow, what we would be covering is, tomorrow we would be covering the determination of value, how the values are determined for the purpose of levy of customs duty. What are the different ways of levying customs duty? What is the taxable event under the Customs Act? What happened particularly when there are pilferage of goods, there is a damage, deterioration of goods, how things are taken care. Then how customs duty pertaining to concessional rate really happens, how the duties are assessed, how the provisional duties are assessed. Then we will also look at how exactly the customs duties are computed, what are the different process on broad terms, import and export, and its offenses. So tomorrow we would be covering the next part of it. Today we have covered the basic of customs duty. So we would go through the question and answers, whatever has been posted this. Is a question that which kind of duties we can claim as a credit from Chintan Joshi. We can claim as on date, we can claim credit of only IGST which we have paid on to it. So whatever IGST we have paid on import, we can claim the credit of it. Then there are certain questions on INCO term, that in FOB term, who should pay the transport In FOB term, till port, the transport is paid by the buyer, and after the port, the transport of either through sea or air is paid by the seller. So the seller's responsibility is still port, and buyer's responsibility starts after the port. Once the goods are loaded on the port, then it is the buyer's responsibility. So I think we have very less questions and answers. Maybe because I have explained it very nicely, you may have less questions. However, tomorrow I would expect more questions into it. So thank you for joining. Tomorrow again we'll join at 4 p.m. Whatever question comes, even post this session, I would try to address those things. Thanks for joining today. Tomorrow, as I've said, we would cover the next part of it. Thank you for joining today.